Hey guys, how are you doing today? I know it's a really stressful time period right now, so we're actually going to go into finding a job in COVID. Sorry, I referenced my laptop because I have some notes down, some talking points that I think could potentially help you guys to find a job or if you're transitioning from work to work during COVID. Now, what makes me be able to talk about that? So I recently actually transitioned roles. I had to transition from my role. I was let go due to COVID circumstances where we could not provide enough cash influx for the company. So I had to transition roles. Not only was I able to do that within a couple of months, and that was a good time frame, but also I was able to transition into my dream job. I'm not saying that you'll be able to do that, but I thought I could give some advice about. So, first things first, let's talk about the resume. So, I'm not going to break down what goes into a good resume right now. I probably will do a whole video on resume building and what that would look like. However, first things first, the reason I bring that up as a first point is people will actually not think about the resume because they're super stressed to find a new role. I understand we have to pay the bills. I understand it's a stressful time period. I'm not trying to minimize that. However, rushing it is one of the surefire ways to make this never work. So, first things first, let's make sure you have a good foundation with the resume. So, what do I mean by that? A lot of you maybe have been at your work for, I don't know, a few years now. You probably haven't adjusted your resume. You probably haven't cleaned it up. Take it out. Clean it up a bit. Make sure things are in a good structure. Make sure that you added a lot of the projects that you currently have worked on, because that's going to come up almost always as one of the first things is like, what are you currently working on? Sometimes they ask you for your whole story, but a lot of times they ask you like, what are you working on currently? That's a very big weighted importance in the interview process. Something I would potentially recommend for resume during this time period. You have scarce amount of jobs with massive volume of applicants. So people are going and brushing through resumes quicker than ever. Normally, it's still pretty quick, but right now, I think something that you note is a lot of times you would do education, experience, and then interests, skills, projects, something like that. I even have that. However, something I potentially would have adjusted during this is noting the fact that maybe I would want to have moved up my experience up above education. Unless you went to like Harvard, that's coming from somebody who got an MBA from USC, went to UCLA undergrad. I still think during this time period I maybe would have moved up my experience first, because honestly they're brushing through resumes. You don't want to give them any reason for them to not look. You would consider it below the fold, but there's no fold, but just like below the first 2 inches. So that's something to just note. I'm not saying you have to do that, but it's something to note. That includes brushing up on your cover letter, seeing how you can maximize your time effort for cover letters. A lot of times you spend a lot of time completely tailoring cover letters. I don't believe you should do that. I usually find one piece that I can tailor for the resume, and then I make sure to adjust in case it's necessary. A lot of times I'll add their logo to the top right corner. I'll add some sort of fun thing. I'm in the gaming industry, so I added a picture of me in the stands at a League of Legends championship, and I put that in the corner. That's something that I think you can flare it up without putting a lot of time, because your time is very valuable during this transitionary process. Let's go into leveraging your network. So, and I'll go into how to network too, but right now, let's get into leveraging the network. So some of you have been building up a network, and a lot of times you don't want to utilize your network because it's this really interesting give and take where you think maybe you could leverage this recruiter that you have, and maybe you should leverage your friend at a company, but you're not going to actually do that. Trust me, I've been there. You don't want to be that guy or girl that goes in and tries to leverage your network all the time. This is the time period to leverage your network. A few reasons for that. One, a lot of people are transitioning. So it's at a very unstable time period where getting that next paycheck is very important. So there's no shame in trying to leverage your network. This is like when you don't hold the card too long. If you have networks that you can leverage them now. 2, people understand that you're transitioning, that there's an unstable environment of COVID. Utilize that. Oh man, utilize that. Anytime it came up in my interview, I brought up how it was a COVID related thing. Nobody even asked me a secondary question on the matter. Now, to something a little bit more concrete. How to network during this time period, how to maximize your network. I'll do a whole video or a series on networking, but let's talk about like leveraging your network, or how to network right now. So first, take the network that you already have. If you have any recruiters that you currently have on within your LinkedIn connections, message them. Talk about something that you've talked about in the past. In the initial lines, I usually bring up in the first sentence, like, hope all is well. Make sure that I understand that I had a relationship with this person. A lot of times with these people, if they forgot the relationship, if you mention what the relationship was, they honestly are too embarrassed to act like they don't remember the relationship, or it even jogs their memory. So really take the time to value. That's a time where you want to actually put in the time. Don't rush leveraging the network of recruiters or people at your jobs that you already have. That goes to save like friends or connections, colleagues that you have in companies. Make sure that you like refresh it. Always refresh it, especially if you haven't refreshed it in a while. Now let's talk about if you don't have networks in certain companies. Before you apply to the role, go to LinkedIn, type in recruiter, type in talent acquisition, type talent recruiter. If you're a little bit more technical, like you're an engineer, look up technical engineer. If you're a designer, technical engineer or artist, see what that looks like. If you can't find them, find somebody else in that network, do an informational, and then potentially see if they can either refer you, but even better, transitioning you to a recruiter. That works very well. So that's something that I have done multiple times in the past. It was very effective. I actually got my role leveraging a recruiter that I hadn't spoken to in a year and a half. Something to note, it's just an asterisk. That recruiter had offered to recommend me to go to a job a couple times in the past. I didn't think they were the right roles. I didn't think I needed to transition. So when I came to him with the active role that I thought was good for me, he immediately referred me. That's great. A lot of people are very, like, snap of a finger, want to leverage a resource. Save your resources, utilize them. If you can, utilize them right now. It's very important. I did. It's how I got my role. So you have that. How should you message them? Keep it brief. If you have the role, link the role. Do not message the recruiter with a general thought, hey, do you have any roles? People do that all the time. I don't understand that. They'll usually tell you to go look at the website, and they'll usually think otherwise of referring you because it means you didn't do the research. Usually 9 times out of 10, the reason somebody doesn't want to give you something or hire something or refer you to something is because you didn't do the research. So do the research. Find a role. When I do that refresher, I do a refresher, then I even do a paragraph talking about something else, and then I link in with, hey, I found this role. I know we were talking in the past this. I found this role that I think if you potentially have someone that you could connect me with, or you know the hiring manager, this is a role. If they have the link, it's just perfect. A lot of times they even just submit, hey, can you, don't send your resume at that point. Either they'll refer you, or they'll ask you to go through email, or they'll ask there, but they'll ask you for like your resume. Perfect. That's just perfect. So send it there, and there's a good chance they'll go for that. But like, make sure that you're really prepared for utilizing that network. So you reach out to people from different companies at LinkedIn, and that's how you can often improve your chances. I think the really important thing that is improving your chances. It's really hard to cold apply right now because there's so many people applying. So please just note that. So let's go into the time frame. So a lot of times what happens is people get really excited about the roles they're going out for. Let's say you have your interview. Note that a lot of these processes for interview process are very long, especially depending on the scale of the company. If you're applying to a Salesforce or a LinkedIn or a PayPal, it's probably, not always, but it's probably going to be a long interview process. I transitioned into EA. I manage The Sims. That was just because I know somebody's probably going to ask. When I was doing that, it took like a month and a half to do that process. Yeah, I actually think it took me 3 months to get a role, but I was transitioning at the end of I was like a little month overlap, so that's why I said 2 months. So I basically, the way it worked is, since it was so long and there were so many interviews, I was doing interview upon interview. You're doing the HR screening, you're doing the hiring manager, you're doing the panel round. Maybe there's a final round after that. Maybe you have to re-interview with your hiring manager. Who knows? Note that you are most likely not doing a couple of those interviews within the same week. There's going to be week-long time lapses. People do not think about how long the process actually is just because of the leeway times. Please note that. I think that's like something that really impacts somebody's ability to transition. Something to think about with the time frame as well. Do not put all your eggs in one basket. It's really easy, as I said, to get really excited about a role. I was super excited about this role. And maybe for the day after you get like that first interview, celebrate. Go have a good time. That's fine. Start applying. Figure out a way to celebrate, and then start applying again. I had overlap upon overlap. I went for like, I think six jobs before I got this job during that time period, and they overlapped. Two of them I went for final round interviews. I didn't get them, and if I wouldn't have applied for anything, that would have been a whole month I would have quote unquote wasted. That's, I think, the real kicker during this time period of people applying, trying to figure out. You'll apply in bunches. You'll do the bushel method, if you want to call it that, where you apply for everything in a little bushel, little basket. You go all at once, cool, and you stop. You start doing the interview processes for all of them, and then if it doesn't pan out, what do? Do that bushel. Then wait for that HR screening process. Maybe you do the hiring manager process. Apply for the next ones. Try to overlap them. I know a lot of times people don't want to do that because they feel overwhelmed. No, I don't want to because I have to prepare for each interview. Perfect. I understand that. Think of it like college, when you had midterm upon midterm upon midterm. Back in the day, what did you guys do? You prepared to study for this one. You allocated time, and then, okay, I have to overlap this much studying for this. It's the exact same. So please do that, because I definitely had a lot of friends. I had a lot of colleagues that I would work with, and they would have this problem, and then they'd be like, I'm back to square one. And then they'd almost go into a form of depression. Finding ways to stay calm. People don't understand, when you're in the business world, you're still a human being. You have a psyche. The human psyche is very fragile. People act like, I'm not going to get depressed. No, it's not going to trigger any traumatic past. I'm not going to get emotionally charged. Yes, you are. You're going to get all of that. Of course you are. It's a job hunting. You're stressed. You need to pay bills. There's a fundamental logistic aspect to it. There's the aspect of you feeling like you're not worth it, or, why was I the one who let go? Or, oh my God, I'm not going to be able to pay my bills. Or, I really just wanted to relax or work from home, but now I'm actually just trapped in my house. It all flooded. I felt like all of it. And you have to manage those feelings. So please take care of yourself. The self-care component is not a secondary aspect. It's actually the primary aspect to how you're going to maximize your time and maximize your effort. Let's talk about expanding your industry. This one is a little bit of a hard pill to swallow. A lot of people are like, no, I know exactly what I want to do. I don't want to deviate my career. What I did is I prioritized it where I applied to, I'm gaming, I applied to the direct publishers, developers. I did that. That was where I focused all my time. I put all my time into that. Not only did I put all my initial time into that, I set trackers and things like that to go check the career site, because something to note, I'm going to put it as a note. I was almost going to talk about it. Something to note, you're I don't know what percentage more likely, but pretty much what a lot of recruiters do, and I've talked to some recruiters, is they will, within the first job posting, especially when it's a popular role, they'll get thousands of jobs immediately. They take the first 250 and they just go through that. And then they get their 10 or 15 candidates and they do the process with them, and then they reopen the role. Or that's why the role is out for 7 months and you're just like, what is happening? That's because a lot of times they do the whole process and then they restart it. Something to note in case you didn't know that. So I just want to make sure that people understand that could happen. So have Have your ones that you really go out for. Have those as trackers. You can have an Excel sheet if you want. I'm not going to tell you how to do that because I think managing your style is up to you. And I can talk about tricks in different videos about like what I do. But I found like a lot of people do like Excel sheet breakdown method. That didn't work for me. It felt like more of a chore than anything else. That's fine. If it doesn't work for you, it doesn't work for you. Find what works for you. So for me, I did that. Then after that, when I was doing overlapping and I did some interviews, and especially when I wasn't getting interviews, that's like when you apply to your big companies that you want to go for, that's when you're going to start feeling a little apply for more roles, apply for more things that you feel are going to be good for you. So please do that. So then I applied for my secondary industries and I let that overlap. Great. Continue to overlap industry upon industry. Expand your industry. Apply for secondary companies. Apply for scaled down companies. Apply for bigger companies if you were usually going for startup roles. Expand your portfolio. If you need it, great. You can always reject the offer. You can do that without burning a bridge if you do it respectfully. Those were my initial thoughts on finding a job in COVID. If you liked it, I can 100% do a part 2 on this series. There's a lot of ways that I found that you can go and search for roles in this climate. It is possible. I transitioned into my dream job. You don't have to transition in your dream job. Just find the job that works for you, works for your career, doesn't deviate you too much from your career path, and allows you to feel comfortable during this really unstable time. All right, guys. On that note, I'll see you guys in the next one.